On today's podcast,
It was definitely a huge gamble, right? But I went into it with the mindset of failure is not an option.
the truth is, adding value will never go out of style. Hello, and thanks for joining us for another Five Things podcast. I'm Brian Smith, your host, and today we've got a special guest, Heather Fant.
Hello, everyone.
Coming in town from Charlotte, making the journey, making the investment with the gas prices the way they are. Just in town visiting some friends, right? Friends and
Realtors.
Realtors and
Friends.
making new acquaintances
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
making the rounds. You service all of North Carolina, correct?
North and South Carolina.
North and South Carolina. All right. So you got a lot of folks you network with, obviously.
I do.
Okay.
Plenty.
So tell us a little bit about Heather Fant. Where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in Charlotte, born and raised.
Okay.
Presbyterian Hospital,
Okay.
and then Ballantyne before Ballantyne even existed.
Okay. Awesome.
So, forest and cow pastures, then moved to Waxhaw for a short period of time. And it was very country then,
Now,
very
is this
rural.
downtown Waxhaw or like the suburbs of Waxhaw?
Oh, outskirts, for
All right.
sure.
Sounds good.
For sure.
So you're in the mortgage business, and you've got kind of a specialty on ERC.
Yes,
that
I
you're
do.
working with.
Yes, I
Okay.
do. But let's stick to the mortgage business today.
Okay. Sounds good.
Maybe we'll give ERC a little plug at the end.
All right, sounds good. So just a little bit about you. You're from North Carolina, obviously, and growing up in Charlotte. What are some of the biggest changes you've seen in Charlotte growing up?
Well, first and foremost, the growth.
Yeah.
It's been bittersweet, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
wonderful to see your town, your city growing and developing. But then the trees are gone.
I will say that Charlotte downtown, or excuse me, uptown. I know a lot of people lose their minds.
It
when you
was
say
downtown. Everybody's saying uptown now. I don't know. I guess it depends on where you live. Do you live north of town or south of town?
Okay, well, that makes sense. But it's funny. I'll have people correct me if I say downtown Charlotte for whatever reason.
You can say either. I'll give you permission.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. So, growing up, tell us about your background before you got in the mortgage business.
So I've always been in sales.
Mm-hmm.
I started out selling life insurance.
Okay.
Whenever I was in my young 20s. It was pretty morbid.
Mm-hmm.
It's
a tough gig.
It was tough, but I was good at it.
Yeah.
But it, makes you face a lot of things that you don't really want to necessarily think about every day.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
got out of that. Just found my way in the sales force in general.
Mm-hmm.
Had my financial services licenses at one point, and got my mortgage license actually whenever I was 25 for the first time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So definitely you've gravitated towards sales.
Yes.
So you obviously like sales.
I do. I like people.
Right.
As long as you're a nice person.
That makes sense. No negativity allowed.
No.
Right. So what do you think, just growing up into someone that's considering sales, what do you think is what advice would you give to a person that's considering sales?
Be a good communicator, first and foremost. Put down your phones as far as texting goes and pick up the phone and call people. It's astonishing to me how many people I call and they're like, wow, you called me? And I'm like, yes, I absolutely called you. I want you to hear my voice. I want you to know my conviction. Texting is appropriate sometimes and it is convenient for when it needs to be used. But as far as building relationships, I think it's important to pick up the phone, call someone, let them hear you, know you, and, continue to get to know you that way.
Sure. And I think that's a great tip because a lot of people are growing up with so much digital communication.
Yeah.
And, you have tough conversations on social media, for example, about gas prices and who's responsible and who's not. Whereas, texting or messaging like that is such a poor way to communicate.
It is. It's very poor. People don't understand, where you're coming from. They think you might be angry when, in fact, you're pretty normal, right? And it's all about tone.
Right.
So
Body language,
Yeah.
tone,
Absolutely.
I forget what the percentage is, but it's like 80% of communication is nonverbal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the body language,
I've been
the
known
smile,
to show my body language on my face.
you can
Communicate with
communicate
my
lots of
eyes.
things with
Yeah,
a
exactly.
look, right?
Exactly.
When you get that's all you need. You messed up.
Exactly.
But so I think that's a great tip. Something about sales too, I think that, and I know this about you as well, is if you're going to be in sales, I think a lot of people, and obviously I've been in sales for a long time as well, I think a lot of people think that if you're going to be in sales, you need to be like a slick talker or you need to be smooth or whatever.
No.
And I think you need to be a good listener.
You do.
And I know that about you. I think you're a good listener. I believe you're a good listener. And that's definitely a big tip. I think that I find people that are listening. The other thing is being a problem solver in sales.
Right.
Because you're listening for what they need improvements with.
Exactly. If you're listening, then you're able to ask the right questions going forward in the conversation to get to the end result,
and help
right?
help create a solution for
Exactly.
them based on their needs, because you're actually listening to their situation. You're listening to what they want. What are some mistakes that you've made growing up in sales, professionally, personally, just something to help people get to know Heather Fant a little bit better?
Well, it's always harder to admit the mistakes that you've made.
Definitely.
But I'll say, not staying in something long term and feeling like, well, maybe this isn't meant to be. And granted, some of the times they weren't, right?
Sure.
But you see, I came into the mortgage industry when I was 25. If I would have stuck it out, I would have made a lot more money between the age of 25 and
So much further along.
35 and had a lot more success in general.
Right.
But that being said, I'm still very happy with where I'm at, and I've created amazing relationships along the way. So regret? No. Wish I would have done something a little different? Sure.
But there's always the 2020, or there's always, hindsight's always 2020 is what
Right.
I'm trying to say. And I love something Gary Vaynerchuk said one time, and I was listening to a video or a podcast or something as I was driving down the road. He said, because he missed the first 2 rounds of Uber investment, and he was friends with Travis, who was the founder, and he didn't invest the first 2 rounds, and he
Wow.
could have made hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And so what Gary Vee talks about that, he says, it's easy to look back and think, oh, I should have done this, and be down on yourself about something. But the other side of that is, maybe if you would have been involved and you did invest, you're on a jet somewhere, you're in a car somewhere, and something bad happens. Maybe you're paralyzed because you got in a car accident, because you're going to the airport, because your whole life took a different direction. So we never really know what it could have been.
Right.
I might not be here had I done some of the things differently that I wish I would have done.
Exactly.
So it's easy to see things half empty, obviously, but the half full way is, you're trying to communicate life lessons, or we are, so people can learn that. But at the end of the day, we also can't beat ourselves up that we didn't do something great.
No, not at all. But just to go back on what I said, stick it out, go the extra mile, do a
Right.
little bit more, give it a little more time. And, then if you feel like that genuinely isn't the route that you're supposed to go, don't go.
Right.
But give it a little extra.
Well, the thing I always say, and I'm agreeing with you, the thing I say about sales is when you first get in sales, the toughest part is the first year or two, because everybody knows you're brand new. You don't have the technical expertise typically. Back then you're 25? That's kind of right around the same time I first got into the security industry. So you don't know what you don't know. You're brand new in the industry. You're learning sales. You're learning your industry. And you're hunting. When you first get in sales, you got to go out and hunt, and you got to kill, so to speak, because you need to eat. You need to produce
Right.
income. But what I think a lot of people do is hunting is exhausting. Hunting in sales is cold calling. It's tapping your sphere of influence, which at 25, how big is it really, right? So I think you're out there hunting, and hunting is not great. You deal with a ton of rejection. You deal with all kinds of stuff. But I think when you learn how to start farming as well, which I think you're really good at farming from what I can see from the outside point of view, or developing relationships over time, you've got more of a farm to draw from when it comes to referrals or people that'll help spread your brand.
Exactly. Or just
refer
ask
you
for
business.
a warm introduction.
Right.
And then that way it's not a cold call anymore.
Right.
Hey, so-and-so, you know this person.
Right.
Would you introduce us or let me use your name whenever I call them?
Sure. And I think when you're 25, a lot of people are not as comfortable because they know you just got into it. But I think that's where, to your point, the persistence, that's such a crucial part, because you keep plowing through that resistance. You keep planting those seeds early on, and you get those customers. But it gets easier and easier to get clients the better you get. And the referrals start coming, and then it just gets, I don't want to say it gets easier, but it just starts flowing. You get in that flow state to where you're planting seeds, and now you've got a harvest to draw from.
That's right.
And kind of to use my example of that is being in security for 25 years and then growing a company. What you have to do is you not only, it's another level up. It's I not only need to generate enough business for myself, but to grow a company, you have to generate enough business to overflow so that you can hire this guy to go do that. And then you generate enough referral business and enough inbound leads to bring on this other sales guy. And you got to feed him.
That's right.
And in my case, it was a guarantee because he was very qualified. Or you're training people from scratch or something along those lines. So the process never really starts when you become a business owner. You know, I'm straight commission. Like, a lot of people don't think about that. If the company doesn't make money, I don't make money. I'm the last guy to get paid. And so being a business owner, you're straight commission at a higher level. But it all starts with hunting and planting seeds and persisting.
Absolutely.
To your point.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So that's something you've learned from in the past. Maybe not a mistake, but just something you've learned.
Yeah.
You know, saying that I love John Maxwell, we win or we learn. We never lose.
That's right.
Unless we die, then we're on to the next chapter.
That's
it's
right.
Not that big a deal.
I think
it'll be good anyway. But what is something you think you've done right in the past? A victory that you're happy about, and like the stars aligned, and you'd made some good decisions, and it panned out.
I would say getting back into the mortgage business.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely a huge gamble, right? But I went into it with the mindset of failure is not an option.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that. And again, 100% commission, sales job. A lot of people think that it's just going to be a piece of cake. I knew that it was not going to be a piece of cake.
Right.
But, you know, you got to keep hustling, keep working hard. There's no rest for the weary.
Mm-hmm.
So, just continuing to build my sphere, connect with the people that I've met in my life, connect with new people that I've never met, make the cold calls, make the warm introductions,
Right.
Reach out to the people that I know and ask them, you know, to assist. And it's been very fruitful.
Awesome. Well, that's part of you've got more relationships developed.
That's
You've got larger sphere of influence. You've got credibility because you've been successful in sales for so long. So it's a little bit easier the second time around. We'll go ahead and jump into your 5 things topic if you're ready for that.
Yeah, of course
Okay.
I am.
So the moral of the story here that we're trying to accomplish is, and we were talking about this before we got on the podcast, and I don't know that we disagreed, but it's I personally feel like a lot of people when they think about qualifying for a home, I would say that almost everybody wants to own a home, at least one, long term, but it's kind of intimidating when you've never done it before. I think back to when I bought my first house and my ex, and I was 19 years old in the military, so I had no idea what I was doing. And you're going to bring this up, but I went and bought a car while I was in the process of qualifying. It's like one of the dumbest things you can do, but a 19-year-old
But
kid.
did anybody tell you not to do that?
No, that's why we're having this podcast.
That's
so
right.
you could have helped young Brian prevent a bad scenario. And that's one of the things we're going to do. Now, I still got the house. Fortunately, my Saturn didn't mess up the process, but that was a long time ago. So 5 things if you're thinking about purchasing a home. And here's something I'll say, and you'll probably expand on this. Don't think about buying a home and then go into it right away. What I would say is plan ahead.
Yeah,
Start
absolutely.
gearing up for in the event you want to buy a home. And you're going to cover some good stuff with us here. So let her rip. What are the 5 things people should be thinking about?
Well, definitely don't go and buy a car. Don't take on any new debt that is large debt. Have the conversation with your mortgage professional before you do something, because likely they will tell you whether you should or should not.
Mm-hmm. And what are the reasons for that? So let's say I go take on a $500 a month car payment. When my previous payment was $400.
Okay. So debt to income ratio is very important, and there are certain qualifying factors with your debt to income ratio for any loan program that you're going into. That $100 a month could push you over the threshold, and then you no longer qualify. So unless it's something that you absolutely have to do and that you've already okayed with your mortgage professional, then I would steer clear of taking on any new debt for sure.
And chances are you don't have to. Generally speaking, I'm sure it's more of a want, I would think.
Generally speaking, more of a want.
Right.
So have a healthy amount saved. A lot of people think that they have to have 10 or 15 or 20% down, but that's not the case. Some programs allow for 3, some allow for 5, and then you can go up based on whatever's best for you at that time. Okay. So you're going to want to keep your credit scores healthy. Okay. So if you have any concerns about your credit score, there's actually a program that I have access to. I'm not a credit repair specialist,
Sure.
But I do have access to a program that we can actually see what your credit score is and how we can get it up, if not a lot, to get you to the qualifying factor. A lot of people freak out and they think that, they're 700 score it and good enough. That's not the case. Okay. So always have that conversation.
Yeah, and always higher is better, obviously. More time in history is better. Lower debt to income ratio. Not using a lot of credit card debt. Things like that are obviously big factors that you can help people look at. Real quick, the last thing I want some clarification on the money in the bank scenario. So let's say someone's thinking about buying, I'm going to throw out numbers if it helps. They're going to buy a $500,000 house. You were talking about having like 3 to 5%. Is that for the down payment, or is that money in the bank so the bank feels more comfortable giving you a loan?
That would be for the down payment, and the bank is going to want to make sure that you have the money in your accounts to make your down payment, right? So down payment and then closing costs are different. So those two numbers combined are going to be what they want to see, and they're going to want to see that you have reserves so that you can continue making your payment for at least a few months after that.
So what would you say is a good rule of thumb? Let's say that I'm going to spend 3% on 500,000. What is that? That's was that 15 grand?
Thank you. You're right.
Okay.
15,000.
So 15 grand. So 15 grand plus closing cost, which is generally.
And these are all hypothetical
numbers on a $500,000 house, roughly. And there's obviously different programs and
it would probably
VA loans
be a little over 20,000, between 20 and 25.
Okay.
In that particular instance, generally, if you are looking at a $500,000 house, your income's probably going to be a little higher. So you're probably going to want to focus on that 5% number. The 3% number is going to be for somebody who has less than the area median income.
Okay.
And that's something that we can talk about.
Sure. And obviously, if
in
you
more
want
depth.
details, you can contact
Yeah.
Heather to dig into details and programs.
Absolutely.
And different areas have different programs.
Absolutely.
My understanding is obviously VA. I'm a veteran. I've done a VA loan before, but there's, let's say you're buying in rural areas. I don't know why that word is so tough for me to say.
It's hard for some.
It's hard for me. But those areas a lot of times might have 0% or something, special incentives from what I understand.
So I'll get to VA and
Or zero down, I should say, not
yeah.
0%.
So VA is a 100% financing option. Of course, if the veteran wanted to put more money down, then they could. But yes, you can utilize 100% financing. There's also a USDA loan that is also 100% financing, and that's area specific.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking of there. So good rule of thumb is you want to have, ideally, $500,000 house. You want to have about 5% down.
Yep.
You
Plus
probably
your closing costs.
plus closing costs, generally what, 1-2%, something like that.
A little higher than that.
Okay.
Depending on the attorney that you're going to
Okay.
use.
And then you want to have some money in the bank after that, so you can go to
So
Lowe's.
you can live and not be house poor.
Right.
My job is not to make people house poor. I want to make sure that they're completely comfortable. Just because you qualify for a certain amount doesn't mean that that's going to be your comfort zone as far as your monthly payment goes. So that's something that we always talk about with our clients as well.
Okay. So good deal. Sorry to spend so much time
It's
on
okay.
that. Going to topic number 2, we were talking about, what was that again?
Renting. Renting is the easy way out, it seems, or was, okay? But now in the environment that we're in, we've seen rental properties increase a lot.
Right.
A lot. So entering the market definitely helps to start building equity. And then you're building equity in your house instead of giving your money to a landlord, rental company. So renting is not cheaper these days. It's truly not. A friend of mine in particular was renting a 1-bedroom apartment for $1,400. She just got her renewal, $2,100.
Yeah.
So we're seeing rentals go up quite a bit. They know that there is not a lot of inventory out there. So they're going to be pretty high.
Massive demand. We've got a
Yeah.
lot of folks moving into the state.
A lot of demand. Everybody wants to be here.
Well, especially, being in the security industry, we deal with a lot of clients and stuff like that. And we've got folks coming in from New York. I mean, massive amount of people flooding the Northeast with the taxes and I just think politics and political situations and
Yes.
policy that I think there's a lot of people are fleeing.
Don't
So
New York, our North Carolina, and South Carolina.
right, not to get overly political, but it's always amazing to me when people vote for higher taxes, then they wonder why their rent went up. It's
Yeah.
like, well,
They'll figure it out one day.
yeah. So that being said, it's a rent. You really don't have control over your expenses, and I think a
right.
lot of people are feeling that. Whereas with you, when you own the property, generally speaking, you're going to pay less per month, and a lot of people may not know about write-offs.
Or right around the same, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, the rates are going up. We'll talk about that
Well, it makes a difference.
minute.
Sure.
But the rates are going up. We're just going to rent. But rental rates are going up too. So it's not necessarily the best opportunity, right? So entering into the housing market, you're entering into that equity, building phase. Again, not giving your money away to somebody else, but giving it back to yourself and investing in your future.
Sure. And here in Raleigh, I mean, the properties have gone up. I mean, my house probably 50% in the last, 5 years, something like that.
Right.
So it's gone up tremendously. And that's a property that I've had rented out. And it's something that someone else was paying the mortgage while my net worth is growing. So that's a great way to build wealth. It's a great way to hedge against inflation, because as the value of the dollar from government overspending, as the value of the dollar decreases, your property goes up in value. So it actually hedges against inflation, which is another intangible benefit. So owning versus renting. I don't want to get too far off the subject.
No. With recent rate increases, and that's a good segue into where I was going next. Anyways, that's pretty much, it as far as renting versus owning. I think a lot of people know that you just, you're not building equity.
Sure.
If you're renting,
it's an expense versus an investment. At least you get something back. And the other thing is, a lot of people may not know, but you get to write off the interest on your taxes.
Yeah, it depends on your tax bracket, of course, your income, where you're at as far as that goes. But definitely talk to your CPA about that too.
Sure.
Because you can definitely write a lot of mortgage-related expenses off.
Now, you do have the expenses in the house too, which you need to plan for. Your hot water heater going out, your roof. There are things like that you need to be prepared for. But
buy a home warranty.
Well, make sure you get a good home warranty company too.
Exactly.
But that's where the expertise of a Heather Fant comes in. She'll guide you correctly, and any good mortgage person.
I have a few good home warranty companies that I refer to.
Good deal. So leasing versus owning, and now we're into 3, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
So with the recent rate increases, which may seem dramatic, at least you aren't in a bidding war now with 20 other people as far as whenever you're going to make an offer on a house. So a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, now the rates are 5.5, 5 3/4, what have you. What happened to 2s and 3s? Well, they're gone. We're not living in a fairy tale land anymore.
Right.
But it is important for people to understand that the rates needed to go up so that we don't see a banking crash in the near future. That's pretty important.
Yeah.
But you're not in a bidding war with over 20 buyers and, offering $100,000 over asking price. So it's definitely evening out the playing field a little bit more. So people that were having a hard time, they've been shopping for a year, maybe longer. They are probably sitting on the sidelines going, dang, I got really beaten down in that. It's probably a good time for them to enter back in. The supply is still lower than the demand, but it's cooling off. When I say cooling off, I don't mean it's going cold.
Sure.
We're still in a very...
getting more manageable,
right,
I
but
would
the
say.
real estate environment is still healthy. We're still up year over year. So
I actually think 2022 is going to be a great year to purchase because I think it'll be cooled down like you talk about, but it's not going to be insane. And I think North Carolina, for a number of reasons, is really positioned well to endure a likely recession that I believe is coming. And I think that we're really positioned well because there's such a demand to live here that I think we're going to, the people that have the resources to leave places that are maybe not as desirable, they're going to end up in places like North Carolina, Florida, Texas, places like that where it's a great place to have a business or raise a family, things like that. North Carolina has a really friendly business climate, which is really nice. Just multiple articles about Raleigh and Charlotte and North Carolina in general.
I really do love living here.
Yeah,
it's a great state.
It's very fortunate. I ended up here because of Fort Bragg in the Army, and I got my boss pregnant. That's how I ended up here. The birthing human that I impregnated. I'm not going to go too far into that, but other than that, are we on topic 4?
Yeah, we're on 4.
All
We're
right.
moving to 5.
Yeah, moving.
So you bring me to another really good point, and you talk about recession. Recession is going to happen, right? Basically, what we're doing is masking it right now and saying it's not going to happen. Maybe an article even came out today, I'm pretty sure, that said we're in a recession. I haven't read the news, but somebody else told me that, and I was like, well then. Historically, with recession, as we all know, we hold on to our money. We stop spending our money on goods in general, including real estate. Some of us, not all, but the majority of people will start holding on to their money, and they're not going to spend it so frivolously as they have been. Is that the word I'm supposed to use?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Haphazardly, frivolously,
Yeah.
spendthrifts.
Just making sure. Sometimes I have a hard time figuring out which word I want to use.
And you know, go ahead.
No, after you.
I was going to go into a whole nother point. I don't want to cut you off.
Well, then I'll go before you.
All right, yeah.
Okay, so historically, whenever a recession happens, that's when everybody holds on to everything. Rates generally go back down. So we might see a couple more rate increases during the year. But once people stop spending just a little bit, that's when the Fed needs for people to start spending more money again. So we might see rates come back down. That's what we've seen historically. We don't know what's going to happen. Everything's changing so much from day to day. Right. But, you know, we're in a recession, if not, or I mean, like we're headed for one, if not already in one. So definitely keep that in mind. That doesn't mean don't buy now. When I say that, I mean, you know, you're married to the house, not the rate.
Well, you have to live somewhere. You have to have shelter.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one
Get
of our
into the
basic
market.
needs. Yep.
Value is going to continue to go up. It may not be as dramatic as it was over the last few years, but still we're looking at 5, 6, 7% increases in value. So there's never a time that you should wait, because then you're going to miss something, and it's likely going to be a lower price. I know that people are looking at rates right now saying, oh my gosh, I don't know if I should do this. Rates are not definite.
Well, the other thing is you can always refi if they go down.
Yeah. Or you can always talk to your mortgage professional about buying your rate down. That's always an option. And yeah, I would love to have the conversation if anybody has any questions about what that looks like.
You know, the other point I was going to make a moment ago is emotional intelligence. I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to over the last few years that they were getting excited and they want to buy properties and Airbnb and this and that because things were good. And so consumer confidence is high. So you got all these people out there buying, living large, trying to invest and do things like that. When they're buying high, really, you're buying the market high, you're buying real estate high. To be honest, I've been kind of sitting back a little bit. I've been doing things, but not at a high level, because wealth is created during recessions. You look at a lot of people that got wealthy right around 2008, 2009, 2010. A lot of companies were founded in those time frames. So right now the market has dipped. Crypto has dipped tremendously. Real estate may dip in a lot of areas. So the time to get aggressive is when you're buying things on sale. You know, there's so much. Tesla was $1,100 a share, something like that, not too long ago. I think it's $750 a share, something like that. It's going to go back. You know, I remember after the Great Recession in 2008, probably around 2009, 2010, the Dow was around 5,500. You know, it's dipped to around 30,000 now. So that, you know, a lot of people, they were clinging to their money, not making moves when the Dow was at 5,500. But a lot of people, like I'm sure the Warren Buffetts of the world with emotional intelligence, they're investing when it's uncomfortable because they realize this is a good time. When J. Paul Getty said something, I've always remembered this quote: observe the masses and do the opposite, because most people are generally pretty average, mediocre, and or poor. Wealthy people have the ability to have that emotional intelligence and make those moves when it's not as comfortable.
Right.
So I'm excited that people are pulling back, because that's kind of a sign to me that it's time for me to get aggressive.
I know, I'm thinking the same thing.
So I'm excited about making some moves next year. And to your point, rates are what they are. You can only do so much with that unless you got tons of cash, which most of us don't. So
we were on 4.
We were on 4.
We were on 4,
right. Okay.
And now we should be on 5.
All right, we're going to 5. Here we go.
Well, it's always important to talk about which program is going to be best for you. And when I talk about program, I mean, FHA, conventional, VA, USDA. There are so many pros to all of them. So it's always a great idea to have that conversation with your mortgage lender and see which one works best for you and is most advantageous.
So it's not really a one-size-fits-all when it comes to mortgages.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not. There are all kinds of different programs, but that's always a more personal conversation, depending on what your life looks like.
Based on your income, based on your debt to income.
I call it financial DNA.
There you go.
None of us are the same.
Right.
So.
But that's why it matters to have a pro.
That's right.
Yeah. So how can people find you, follow you, contact you? And she is dating someone, guys, so don't contact her about that. Instagram.
Yeah.
You're on Instagram.
Heather_fantastic. I know it's cheesy, but I like it.
Yep.
You can always email me, hfant@cmgfi.com. Follow me on Facebook, send me a message, and let me know if there's anything that we can talk about.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today,
Thank you
Heather,
for having
and
me.
for joining
really
me today.
it.
Yeah, and helping us get educated about how to buy a house.
Absolutely.
Good
I'm here
stuff.
for you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
And like the podcast, if you liked it, feel free to follow, and we'll see you for the next one. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, guys.
Hello, this is Brian Smith, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable content.